It came for you.
Such a phrase can be potentially heard in some creepy haunted house being there alone, but now we are talking about a new compilation on my channel. Hello dear friends, this is Mr. Top F and this is the second part of the video, where I talk about 5 of the most creepy and popular haunted houses from around the world. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications before we start so you don't miss new releases on similar topics. Also, give me a like if you are enjoyed by my videos. Get ready to be scared, we start. Ram and Ghost Hotel in England. One of the legends says that in the distant year 940, a certain Edric received part of the land of the English county of Gloucestershire, where he began the construction of a city near Topa Hill. The new city grew fairly quickly, but until 1139 there was not a single church there. Then they built an abbey in it and set about building a large church, but it turned out that such a building needed a large number of masons. Therefore, in 1145, a guest yard was built, which received the name Ram and accommodated the builders. However, there were rumors that the hired workers were treated there like slaves, so the losses were considerable, and new ones were simply brought in to replace the dead masons. After the completion of the construction of the Church of St. Mary, all the masons were evicted. The building was put in order, and the local bishop was placed in it, by the way, inspiring fear rather than reverence. The bishop was considered a famous fighter against witches, but it was said that in fact, he was in the power of dark forces. Therefore, in those days, the Ram Hotel was known as a place of terrible rituals. For many centuries, the hotel belonged to the church, and what happened there was not known to anyone, but people always bypassed this place. At the end of the 19th century, a tavern was set up in this building, but it went bankrupt because no one wanted to drink or dine in this place. And only in 1930 Ram became a private property and a hotel was opened on this site, and in 1968 John Humphrey bought it and took up its restoration and development. Today it is a full-fledged hotel with several rooms, open to everyone. In addition, in the process of repair work, skeletons and other terrible finds were found in the walls. Incomprehensible dark figures are wandering around the hotel, the clock here is constantly malfunctioning, and the air temperature from time to time unexpectedly drops. The hotel has now gained popularity among all kinds of ghost hunters and thrill seekers. The guests tell how they physically felt the evil spirits of this place, which are several here at once. Almost all visitors also feel the oppressive atmosphere being in this place, or incomprehensible and unpleasant odors. They tried to clean this place repeatedly and with the help of the clergy, but when they tried to free the buildings from evil spirits, they were immediately driven out by these terrifying evil forces. The Bishop of Gloucester called this guest yard the most sinister place where he had the misfortune to be. Eyewitnesses share stories about some scratching sounds in the bar and even about the ghost of a woman. In one of the rooms, the ghost of a cavalier sometimes appears, and when the chimney was dismantled in it, satanic and other magical artifacts were discovered. Worst reputation with the bishop's room. Once, all 8 people who spent the night in this room were subjected to the rite of exorcism. And a little girl saw the ghost of a medieval monk there at night. Another visitor in the kitchen of the hotel saw the ghost of a woman emerging from under the floor. After some time, the floor was dismantled and a skeleton and ancient knives were found there. Expert research showed that they were ritual victims. It doesn't matter whether a person believes in the existence of ghosts or not, it is impossible to find anyone who would not feel uncomfortable when visiting the Ram Hotel. This place remains one of the most cursed houses in England, which is helped not only by history but also by the sinister atmosphere of this place. Borgvattnet Vicarage, Sweden. Considered one of Sweden's most haunted places. This vicarage once even attracted a ghost-casting priest. This ancient building, built in 1876, served as the residence of the priests of the local church. All was peaceful and quiet until 1927, when a local vicar reported some strange activity around his house, including strange voices and unholy dreams. Stories of paranormal events continued into the following decades. Every priest and new family reported haunted incidents. In 1930, Vicar Rudolph Tangdin saw an old woman in gray appear in one of the rooms. He followed her as she left, but she disappeared before his eyes. Rudolph's successor, Otto Lindgren, experienced several paranormal experiences while living in a rectory in the 1940s, including unexplained noises and objects moving by themselves. One night, the woman who was in the vicarage woke up to find 3 elderly women sitting on the couch in her room, staring at her in the dark. She turned on the light and the 3 ghosts were still there, but they seemed blurry in the light. In another case where the priest brought a rocking chair with him when he moved into the priest's house, the ghosts liked it. No one was allowed to sit on a chair for a long period without being thrown out of it by an invisible force, and the chair would often rock on its own. Who these ghosts were during their lifetime and why they live in the house is unknown, but there are suggestions that these are the souls of former vicars. There are also stories of a maid who killed her child and buried the body in the backyard, and there are stories of a priest named Perhandland who lost his wife in childbirth. The woman died giving birth to 11 children and, on the advice of the residents, the priest buried her near the house. However, it is believed that he dug up her body and took it with him when he left. The Pirate's House, Savannah, United States. Have you heard of Captain Flint? Heard, you answer. He was the most bloodthirsty pirate of the sailors. Blackbeard was a child compared to Flint. The Spaniards were so afraid of him that I will tell you, I was sometimes proud that he was an Englishman. John Trelawney answered the same question in Robert Louis Stevenson's adventure novel Treasure Island. Robert Louis Stevenson based his characters in Treasure Island on real people and infamous pirates. The infamous Flint was no exception. Although Treasure Island was first published in 1883, Stevenson's book describes events that took place 150 years earlier. It is known that when Stevenson was in the city of Savannah, he went into a tavern and heard the story of a drunkard about a pirate captain who died in one of the rooms of the hotel, asking for more rum. "Bring the rum, Derby," were Captain Flint's last words to Darby McGraw. It is possible that in the late 1870s, Stevenson also heard that the ghost of this scoundrel still haunted the tavern. The pirate's insistence on following the rules even in death may have inspired Stevenson to write of Flint. Dead? Yes, I'm sure he's dead, but if a ghost appears, it'll be Flint. This infamous eatery still exists today, although you won't see any more pirates there except for one captain's ghost. A pirate who still lives in the building. The locals call him Flint's Ghost because they don't know his real name. Today, the tavern is an expensive restaurant, aptly named the Pirate's House. The history of the Pirate's House begins with the founding of the city of Savannah in 1733 when colonists arrived from England. A tent city was built and a large experimental garden was planted. Botanists brought grape seedlings, seeds, flowers, and herbs from all over the world for the 10-acre plot of land. The colonists needed to know what would grow in the area and what would not. High hopes were placed on grapes for winemaking and mulberries for silk cultivation. Nothing grew in that climate and soil, but they found that peach trees grew quite well there. After 20 years, when cultivation periods were established in the state of Georgia, the city of Savannah began to turn into a beautiful seaport city, and large gardens were no longer needed. The Pirate's House was originally built by a sailor in 1754. It was made of wooden beams connected with wooden nails, in the same way that sailors built ships. The structure contrasts with the well-built colonial-era houses in the city center. The Pirate House was a dangerous place full of cutthroat pirates and scoundrels. Sailors, when they came from all the ports of the world, stopped there for the sake of grog and rum, except for the pirate Jean-Pierre Lafitte, who married a woman from the same district and lived at a different time. It is difficult to name names. Too many famous pirates visited this old tavern. What is the life of a pirate, you ask? Robert Edgerly, who has lived in Savannah since birth and is an expert on pirates, also leads tours called Pirate Walks, said, "Pirates didn't live long, but they didn't care. Compared to the life of ordinary sailors, these guys lived perfectly. They did not care if they were hanged at the age of 40, as they saw and experienced much more in their lives than any city centenarians." Edgerly explained how infamous pirates such as Blackbeard, Calico Jack, and Stede Bonnet had all been in the city of Savannah, but several decades earlier before the British settled there and long before the pirate house became a harsh and cruel eatery of sailors. The wine cellar of the pirate house had a tunnel connecting the building to the Savannah River. A tipsy, or sometimes drugged, sailor could leave the diner and wake up the next day on an unknown ship at sea. Pirate captains had a reputation for capturing ship crews if they required manpower. Edgerly said, many men were needed for ships at sea, otherwise the ships were not seaworthy. If the ship was loaded and ready to sail and there were not enough men on the ship, the sailors were taken by force. In those days you didn't go alone to the seaport because of that. They didn't look at the old, they didn't look at the lame, they looked at the young, healthy guys. And local authorities turned a blind eye to this if they were not married, had no children, or were from poor families. They turned a blind eye to it because of the trade. Edgerly explained that sailors forced onto the ship were not allowed to leave the ship when it was in various seaports around the world for fear that they would escape. But power moves were not the only way to capture a sailor. Edgerly said, if a gang of strong men could not find anyone, then they went to a place that is now called the Pirate's House and found a sailor who was healthy in body, who already knew what it was, who had had a little grog, or whom they quickly led out of his condition with a blow to the head. We know that the basement where the captain's quarters were located, Cypress Building number 1750, is a wine cellar. They went down there, and during the day there were men tied and chained to casks of rum, and then at night they dragged the casks through the tunnels and sent them out to sea. With kidnapped sailors, brutal pirates drinking themselves to death, and over 250 years of American history, Pirate House has more than just ghost stories. Greg Prophet arrived in the city of Savannah in April 1990, became a believer, and a few years later began to conduct excursions with Creepy Kroll. He and his tourists have many stories about the appearance of ghosts in the Pirate House. Prophet said, I started giving tours at Pirate House. There was a small restaurant upstairs called Hannah's East. I remember one night, I had a lot of customers there, and I go around the tables and tell them that in a few minutes, we are leaving and the glasses can be taken with us. There were two sisters from Atlanta, and their glasses were almost empty. They were going to walk up to the bar, order another one, and then leave. Suddenly, when I was about to leave, one of the women screamed. I turned and saw that her glass was filled to the top with Spanish moss. She was absolutely thrilled. On another occasion, Prophet was talking to a young couple from Atlanta at the beginning of a tour at the Pirate House bar. Prophet said, they asked me about ghosts. Directly across from us at the cash register on the other side of the bar was a mass of glasses in the shape of a pyramid. They didn't fall, they exploded. Literally, they exploded. Glass was scattered everywhere. Prophet also does charity work in the city of Savannah. So, one time it was a challenge to friends that led him to stay overnight in the dining room of the captain's room, the most haunted place in the restaurant of Tony Cross, a Leukemia Society fundraiser. Prophet said he would accept the challenge if Cross joined him. This idea turned into a charity event where people sponsored two men on a haunted adventure. Prophet and Cross received over $6,000, but the haunted encounter exceeded their expectations. Prophet said, it was really strange, we heard a lot of noise. We were alone in the building and had to go to bed in the same room, but I just wandered around, I couldn't help it, it was delightfully. We kept hearing footsteps and knocking on the walls and doors. We looked around but found nothing. Tony was there to check on me. He didn't believe in ghosts. He is British. At 1:45, he read from Treasure Island, Derby, bring me some more rum. He added a tone as if he were reading to a crowd of people. I brought Jamaican rum because, in the book, Flint's last words were, bring the rum, Derby. I brought rum and 3 glasses. I had 1 glass, Tony had the second, and the third was where one of us would have had to stand up to get close to him. At 1:45, when he read from the book, Derby, bring me more rum, that glass that neither of us reached simply disappeared along with the rum that was in it. We saw him disappear. Prophet is not the only eyewitness to the supernatural phenomena in the Pirate's House. Robert Edgerly said, I know people who have seen a ghost, a big fat guy sitting at a table. Since the House of Pirates has existed for a long time, generations of people work there. I've talked to trustworthy people, I mean the ones who don't think up, who have seen a ghost. The restaurant used to have 20 canteens, but now some of it is owned by another restaurant. Now there are 14 dining rooms, and the reason for this is the fact that some rooms are old living rooms, bedrooms of adjacent houses. I have been told by at least 3 employees in 20 years that they walked around the premises at night, passed by the room, looked into it, and saw a guy there at the table. They came back and looked again, and he looked at them. They were scared to death, they went after someone, and they came back, but there was no one there. People saw the old captain of the ship sitting there. When Greg Prophet shared some of his haunting experiences with author Frances Kerman at the Pirate's House Bar, both experienced the horrifying feeling of the author typing notes into her travel computer. Prophet said, "As soon as we started talking about the ghost, some strange things began to happen to the computer. Numbers, letters, and symbols began to appear on the monitor. It was impossible to understand what it was. The buttons began to be pressed by themselves, and it froze." Frances restarted the computer, and this time something like words appeared on the monitor. They appeared somehow together: to hate, to die. The third time, it seemed to me that these were threats in my direction, that I should shut up and do nothing, otherwise something bad would happen to me. The ghost of Flint, in all his menacing glory, still roams the pirate house. Other eyewitnesses heard the phantoms pleas for rum. Some saw the captain himself. If you go there, buy him some rum or grog in a friendly way, and don't let the guards lead you down. You don't want to wake up at sea being forced to work for Captain Flint. That's all for today. If you haven't watched the first part, you can find a link to it in the description of this video, in the recommendations below, or at the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss new releases. Thank you for watching this release to the end. Mr. Top F was with you. Bye.